All right, so I'm making this video because I want to show people a couple exercises that they can do and one stretch that will help if you are spending a lot of time in a seated position. So what we have to realize is that when we're sitting down for long periods of time, there's going to be two main areas that I want to focus on. The first one is going to be your hip flexors. So the hip flexors are the muscles that are just along the top of your quadriceps, right? And when we're sitting, these muscles shorten up because you can see here, when we close the angle of the hip, our hip flexors are contracted. So what happens in the seating position is our hip flexors tend to get tight in this position. So one of the things that we need to do is we need to open up the hip flexors. The second thing that we need to do when we're in this seated position for a long time is that you can see how we tend to get hunched over with our spine, especially our upper thoracic. So this is the area in our spine that is more along the upper half. So I would say from our sternum up. So we want to correct these two issues. We want to correct our hip flexors, and we also want to correct our flexion of the spine. So the first movement that I want to show is going to help with opening up the spine. So instead of being hunched over like this position all day, we want to make sure that we spend time opening up the spine and extending it like so. So what we can do is we can use a wall. And at first, when you start this move out, you don't want to stand too far away from the wall. What you're going to do is you're just going to extend yourself back until you lightly feel the hair on your head touch the wall, and then you'll come back up. So we'll repeat that. We're going to do that 10 times, 2 and 3. Once you get to the last repetition, number 10, you're going to hold that light touch of your hair for 10 seconds. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, so over time, as you become more comfortable, as you gain more strength and more flexibility, you can start taking your feet further away from the wall, and then you can start extending or bending back a little more. So once again, you'll do somewhere around 10 repetitions, and on the 10th repetition, you want to hold for 10 seconds. So that takes care of extending the upper thoracic. So if we want to do some work with opening up the hips, so we're going to do this sissy squat variation that has us using the wall as well. So it's kind of like that back bend that we just did against the wall, except now we're going to be facing forward and we're going to touch our knees to the wall. So what's going to happen is I'm going to come up on the balls of my feet like so, and then I'm going to bring my knees forward as I lean back away from the wall with my torso. So I come up. You can use the wall for support, so put your hand on the wall so you can maintain balance. And it's going to be the same thing. You're going to do this for 10 repetitions. On the 10th rep, you're going to hold 10 seconds. So as you become more comfortable with this, once again, you can walk your feet further away from the wall. So I'm going to come up on the balls of my feet. As I bring my knees forward, the key here is to lean back, okay? Touching my knees, coming back. So what people have the tendency to do when they first try this movement is they'll come up on the balls of their feet and they'll bring their knees forward, but they keep the angle of their hips closed. So we need to make sure that as the knees come forward, you're opening the hips and you're leaning back. So you're going to counterbalance the weight. So as the weight of your body and in your knees goes forward, we need to counterbalance by leaning back. So what this is doing is this is training you to open up the hip flexors and to stretch them out. So we're gaining strength in this open position in the hips. All right, and lastly, a little stretch that I've been doing with a lot of my clients is the couch stretch. So one variation would be to pretend that I'm lying down on a couch. So let's say this mat is my couch. So you would lie down on it and you would allow this outside leg just to come off of the couch. so that the leg would be hanging down and it would be opening up the hip flexor. So that's one way that you can start to open up the hip. Another way to do it is to use a yoga block here. And what you're going to do is you're going to put the yoga block back like so. You're going to put your foot on the yoga block and you're going to come forward into this lunging position. So already, just by coming forward, you can see that I'm opening up the hip flexors and I'm stretching out this front side of my leg. So in order to feel the stretch a little further, what we would do is we would come upright and we would lean back. So if this doesn't really feel like a stretch, what you would do is you would continue to stack that foot even higher and higher. Eventually, you could do this stretch using the wall. So you would put your foot up against the wall and you would come into this position like so. Once again, that is really going to open up those hip flexors and it's going to open up the quads. So when you do that stretch, I would just hold it for about 30 seconds and I would do that for 3 to 5 reps. So just as a recap, we did our head taps against the wall. So that is extending our spine. So you'll do 10 repetitions. On the 10th one, you're going to hold for 10 seconds. You're going to couple that with the sissy squat where you are coming up on the balls of your feet, you're bringing your knees forward and you're leaning back. So again, always use a target, so use a wall. And if you start to get a little more courageous, you don't have to use a wall. You can make it more balance-based. You can see I have my yoga blocks here. And what you would do is you would come down. Notice how I'm leaning back. I'm keeping my hips open. I lightly touch my target and I stand back up. So that would be a harder variation, but always start easy, nice and close to the wall, using that for taps. And then the last stretch we did was to stretch the anterior part of our legs, essentially. So what I'm saying is you want to stretch the quads and the hip flexors by doing that couch stretch. So you're either going to lay on the couch, you are going to use this yoga block like so, which is stretching out that hip flexor, or you can do the more aggressive version and you can use a wall and come up into this position. So make sure you watch the videos that are on the screen right now to learn more ways to incorporate exercise or more movement into your life. Please subscribe if you dig this channel, and I'll see you next time. Peace.